Thank you. First, I want to thank the organizers. It's a great pleasure to be here, especially with this weather straight imported from Brittany. So today I want to talk about limit theorems for dynamical systems, and there are several kinds of limit theorems. So I want to be specific and say exactly what I will mean by this. What are today's limit theorems? I will have some measurable map on some space X. I will have a probability measure P on X. I will have a measurable function f from x to the real numbers. And I will have some normalizing sequence that I will always call Bn. Bn, it will be a positive number. And then you can form the Birkhoff sum Snf of x, which is the sum from 0 to n minus 1 of f of tkx. And then I will say that Tx, P, F, Bn satisfies a limit theorem that I will abbreviate by LT, limit theorem. If there exists a real random variable z, such that the Birkhoff sum Snf renormalized by Bn tends in distribution with respect to this probability measure P towards Z. So that's the definition for today of a limit theorem. You can see that I did not add a constant here. Sometimes you want to rescale by an additive constant. I won't have a constant like that. And my only condition is that it's not that, Z is not constant, it's that it's not the Dirac mass at 0. Okay, why not? That's a good definition for what I want to make. So some examples to see what we are talking about. The first example, here I did not assume that T was preserving my measure P, but if T preserves P, and F is in L1, then you have Birkhoff theorem that tells you that Snf divided by n tends to the conditional expectation of F with respect to the invariant sigma field. Yes, I did not assume ergodicity either. Even so, in most interesting cases, my map will be ergodic. So this is a limit theorem in the above sense if this conditional expectation is not identically 0. And what is the normalizing sequence in this case? Bn is just n. In particular, in the ergodic case, this expectation is just almost everywhere the average of the function f, and this will be a limit theorem in this sense if the average of f is not 0. Okay, so this holds for any system, but then sometimes you have interesting systems on which you can say more. And a basic example of this is if T is an Anosov map, and P is a Gibbs measure, and F is, say, Hölder continuous with 0 average for P. And then, and let's assume that F is not a coboundary. And in this case, it's almost as good as a sequence of independent random variables in the sense that you have the central limit theorem, Snf divided by square root of n, tends to a Gaussian. And the variance is non-zero because I assumed that F was not a coboundary. So this is a limit theorem. because the Gaussian is not a Dirac mass at 0, for which sequence, for the sequence Bn equal to square root of n. Okay, so that's what you expect to be limit theorems. But with this definition, you also have slightly more exotic limit theorems. For instance, assume again that T is preserving a probability measure, and assume that T is mixing. And take F of the form, let's take F to be a coboundary, G minus G composed with T. Then the Birkhoff sum of F, that I can divide by 1 if I want, is just G minus G composed with Tn. And since T is mixing, G composed with Tn is becoming independent of G, which means that this converges in distribution to W minus W prime, where W and W prime are independent random variables on R, distributed like G. And this is, again, a limit theorem in my sense. If G is not the constant function equal to 0, this is a limit theorem with Bn equal to 1, which corresponds less of what we think of a limit theorem, but still it fits in my framework. And the last basic example I want to mention is a convergence to stable laws. If you take Z0, Z1, and so on, IID random variables on the real line in the domain of attraction of a stable law, without centering parameters. So assume that Z0 plus Zn minus 1 divided by the scaling. The scaling you need to put depends on something called the index of the stable law. It's of the form 1 over alpha. And alpha can be anything between 0 and 2. So if you have this is just a theorem about independent random variables. You can put this in a framework of a limit theorem like that by taking x to be equal to R to the n, and P will be the product measure of the distribution of the Zi. And T is the left shift, and F is just the first coordinate. And I've designed all of this so that the Birkhoff sum of F are distributed exactly like the partial sums of my sequence Zi. So SNF divided by n to the 1 over alpha tends to Z. And so this is a limit theorem again, with Bn equal to n to the 1 over alpha. Okay, so what I'm just saying here is that the general setting of ergodic theory is more general than the setting of a sequence of independent variables. Okay, so you have all these examples, and now there are 2 lines of questions. You can say, okay, I take my favorite concrete system from, I don't know, physical origin or geometric origin, and I try to understand the system very precisely and prove the limit theorems that happen for nice functions in this specific system. And that's, this gives rise to a lot of extremely interesting questions. And another thing you can do is try to understand general systems. And of course, you expect to see wilder behavior, and the general question is, how wild can it get? And that's what I will do today. That's the kind of discussion I'm interested in. And so the questions, you see, suppose that you fix your system, your probability measure, and the question is, what kind of limit can you get here? And what kind of normalizing sequence can you get here? And it turned out that for the limit, essentially you can get anything. And that's a theorem by Tuvno and Weiss. Improved in a way by Aronson and Weiss more recently. And which is a little bit surprising if you're used to the idea that, okay, limit theorem should be central limit theorem or Birkhoff theorem. Here is a statement of the theorem. You take any t ergodic, and preserving a probability measure p. Any system you like, say a rotation. And you have to exclude the trivial case, say, of the identity on one point, so p non-atomic. And now take any random variables, z. And the claim is that in your system, your favorite system, you can find a function f. And you can find a sequence Bn going to infinity, such that, well, what you expect, SNF divided by Bn tends to your random variable z. And to me, that's a really surprising statement. If T were at positive entropy, I would not be that surprised. If you have a Bernoulli system, you have a lot of freedom, you can put a lot of things in there. But this also works in zero entropy systems. This also works for rotations or odometers or things like that. But it turns out that even in odometers, there is enough freedom to put any z like that. And of course, this random variable will be a little bit wild. Typically, it will not be integrable. The improvement of Aronson and Weiss is that if z is non-negative, you can't also take f to be non-negative, and this has interesting applications to infinite ergodic theory. Okay, so that's the situation. Z can be anything. So what about Bn? What about Bn? Well, first you can go in the same setting as this theorem, and you can look at what kind of sequences are produced by the proof. And in the paper by Aronson and Weiss, they prove in fact that the sequences Bn they get is essentially of order n, more precisely n multiplied by a slowly varying function. So it's not a bad sequence. It goes to infinity in a rather mild way. It's not something like exponential of n or something like that. And in fact, if you look at all the examples above, it's the case that all the sequences Bn are rather mild, at least in the examples. They all grow at most polynomially. They can not tend to infinity, maybe, but when they tend to infinity in all these examples, it's not too bad. And it turns out that this is a general statement, at least in the case of probability preserving maps. If you assume that T preserves the probability measure P, and you assume that you have a limit theorem, well, T, P, F, Bn satisfies the limit theorem, then Bn cannot be too bad. It can grow at most polynomially. And this is not a hard statement, and it's essentially already there in Aronson and Weiss. It's really not hard, so I can give the proof. And that's the only real proof I will give today. But still, so that you see, I want to give this proof so that you see where the fact that the measure is preserved will help you a lot. And I will not give the whole proof, but at least the most important ingredient. And what do you know? You know that the Birkhoff sum of SNF divided by Bn tends to your random variable z, and you know that this z is not a Dirac mass at 0. You need to use this, otherwise you could take Bn extremely large, and of course it would tend to the Dirac mass at 0. So maybe there is some mass at 0, but not everything. So it means that you can take epsilon positive. That's the probability that z is larger than epsilon be something positive, say larger than 3 alpha. Okay, that's all you can make with this. And then you can choose a second constant controlling the tails. You can choose some m, such that the probability that z is larger than m is extremely small, and compared to the control you already have, so smaller than alpha. That's a natural thing to do. And now look at these three events. Look at the point where the Birkhoff sum at time 2n is larger than epsilon. Well, this is converging in distribution to z. So this probability for z is larger than 3 alpha. So these events will also have a probability larger than 3 alpha after some time. By your assumption of convergence in distribution. And maybe I should put some large or strict inequality and pay attention, and I will not pay attention. And this Birkhoff sum at time 2n, I will relate it to the Birkhoff sum at time n. So a second interesting event is a point where SNF divided by Bn is smaller than m. And this one essentially distributed like z, so the probability that it's larger has a small probability. So the proba here is at least 1 minus alpha. And now let me also use the fact that the measure is invariant. And the set of points where SNF divided by Bn at the point Tnx is larger than m. Well, this set and this set have the same measure because the measure is invariant. So this set also has a probability at least 1 minus alpha. And if I designed my constant well, you see that the intersection of these three sets will have measure at least alpha. So it's non-zero. So you can take x in the intersection of these three sets. And then what will happen with this x? It's in the first set, then you can say that epsilon times b2n is bounded by the Birkhoff sum at time 2n of x, because x is the first set. And this is SNF of x plus SNF of Tnx, of course. So Birkhoff sum is a cocycle. And then SNF of x, you know that it's bounded by m times Bn. And SNF of Tnx, you also know that it's bounded by m times Bn. So this is bounded by 2m times Bn, which means that you found a bound for B2n in terms of Bn. B2n is bounded by 2m divided by epsilon Bn. So this is some constant k, Bn. And once you have this, you can start from n equal to 1 and iterate. And then you get that b2 to the k is smaller than k to the k b1, which is just 2 to the k to the power log k over log 2 or something like that, times b1. So I've proved that at least along the sequence of the powers of 2, Bn grows at most like a polynomial. And then you need to work a little bit more to also obtain the other times, but okay, forget about it. That's not a proof, that's half a proof. But still, you get the idea. So that's nice, and it tells you that two remarks. First, the k here you get just depends on the choice of this parameter epsilon, m, and alpha. So it only depends on the distribution of z. So the polynomial rate you will get will depend, say, on the tail behavior of your random variable. And the heavier the tails, and then the bigger polynomial exponent you could get. And that's exactly what you see in the case of stable laws. When this normalizing sequence is large, it means that the tails are really heavy. Okay. And the second comment is that all these polynomial exponents are covered by the examples above. So it tells you that you cannot do better than this theorem. You cannot say, okay, it would be big O of n to the cube. Because for any exponent, you have an example here where Bn grows exactly like that. So this proposition is all you can hope to say about the growth of normalizing sequences for probability-preserving systems. But when I wrote the definition above, I was very careful not to require that T was preserving the probability measure P. And in fact, the examples I'm interested in are not like that. I'm really interested in examples in infinite ergodic theory where T is maybe preserving some infinite measure, and then P would be, say, absolutely continuous with respect to this infinite measure. And then you see that this proof here will not go through because I used in a crucial way the fact that the measure was invariant to say that this set and this set have the same measure. So what can you say if you don't assume anymore that the measure is preserved? And if you look at the examples of limit theorems in infinite ergodic theory, they have the same flavor as the ones here, with a normalizing sequence which is essentially a polynomial, or polynomial times a slowly varying sequence. So when I started thinking about this, I would really have liked that it would be like that, because it would be really useful, say, for Eagleson-like type theorems or things like that, to know that the sequence does not grow too fast. And there is a stupid example that showed that it can grow extremely fast. And I just want to give the stupid example to see why you need to add an assumption. The stupid example is the following. The stupid example is to take x equal to z, and t, the right translation, t of x is equal to x plus 1. And take your function f, so it has to be defined on the integer. F of n will be 2 to the power 2 to the, just 2 to the n, but if you want to put more exponentials, you can do it. And take for probability measure the average of the Dirac mass at 0 and the Dirac mass at 1 divided by 2. Okay. And then what is SNF of x divided by, I will take Bn equal to f of n. Well, if x is equal to 0, this is the sum from 0 to n minus 1 of f of k divided by f of n. And since my sequence grows very quickly, the sum here is negligible with respect to this first, to the denominator, so this is extremely small. And if x is equal to 1, then you get the sum from 1 to n of f of k divided by f of n. And you can forget about the first few terms in the sum, because they are negligible with respect to what you see at the endpoint, and you just get essentially 1. So it means that with respect to this starting probability measure, which I chose carefully, it means that S and f divided by f of n, it's converging to a random variable which is 0 with probability 1/2 and 1 with probability 1/2. So it's a Bernoulli 1/2, 1/2 distribution So it's a limit theorem in this sense. But it's a stupid one. It's a stupid one because this dynamics never comes back. And since it never comes back, it always sees new parts of the space. And on these new parts of the space, you can put the value you want for f and then create anything. If I want to do like that, it will work exactly the same way. And so it means that you cannot say anything interesting if you have this kind of behavior, and that's a general feature of infinite ergodic theory. If you don't assume some form of recurrence, you're doomed. In this example, you can notice that t is preserving the counting measure on the integers. But that's really a stupid example that you never consider when you do infinite ergodic theory. So what you need is an assumption of conservativity that tells you that you come back infinitely often to sets of finite measure. So say that you want the Poincaré recurrence theorem to hold in your system. And so I was wondering if you assume conservativity, Bn had to grow at most polynomially, and that would have been really helpful, and I could not prove it. What I could prove is the following. Assume that Tm is conservative and ergodic, and that P, your probability measure, is absolutely continuous with respect to M. And assume that T, P, F, Bn satisfies a limit theorem. In this sense. And then, what I can prove is that Bn does not grow exponentially. Then for all delta R, Bn is a small o of exponential of delta n. Okay? So the message of this theorem is that 2 to the n cannot be a normalizing sequence. Okay, so that's what I can prove. And I would like to give you a wrong sketch of proof of a weaker statement. Okay, that sounds stupid. But still, to see how conservativity could help you. This will be nonsense, but I hope I will still convince you. And then I will tell you why it is nonsense. So the wrong sketch of proof of a weaker statement, I would like to prove, under these assumptions, that Bn plus 1 does not grow faster than an exponential. So I would like to prove that Bn plus 1 is smaller, say, than 10 times Bn. And in fact, just putting Bn will not be enough, but say take the maximum of the previous values. So I want to prove that there exists a constant C such that we have this for all n. And how can you do that? Well, assume it's not true. Then you take some very large n where Bn plus 1 is much larger than all the previous BIs. Bn plus 1 is much larger than the previous BIs. And then, what can you say about the Birkhoff sum at time n plus 1? Well, your Birkhoff sum at time n plus 1 is essentially distributed like your limiting random variable z. Okay, but here it's distributed with respect to p, like z. But this, you have the last term, which is f composed with tn divided by bn plus 1. And then you have the previous terms, which are just the Birkhoff sum at time n, divided by bn plus 1, but I want to force in the bn. You have something like that, SNF divided by bn times this one. And SNF divided by bn, you know that it's also distributed essentially like z. the assumption of convergence. And if Bn plus 1 is much larger than all the other ones, this one is extremely small. So it means that you can forget about these terms here, and it tells you that f composed with Tn divided by Bn plus 1 is distributed like z, and z is not the Dirac mass at 0, so it means that you have a definite proportion of your P measure where f composed with Tn is of the order of magnitude of Bn plus 1. At least on a set of positive measure. And just to simplify the discussion, assume that you're preserving an infinite measure, and P is a restriction of this measure to a set of mass 1. So what is the picture here? You have your set A, and then you take a point x like that. And then x, you wander around it at time n, you're somewhere, and f composed with Tn here. It's of the order of Bn plus 1. Okay. And that's exactly the picture we see in this stupid example. But I'm assuming conservativity, which means that the picture is not like that. The orbit of x, it will go around, and then at some point it will have to come back to A, because I'm conservative. And then you will go on, and at time n, you will find a point where f of t and x is extremely large. But what does it mean for this point y? It means that f of t n minus ky, which is the same thing as f of t and x, it was already of the order of magnitude of Bn plus 1. But you know that your Birkhoff's, at time n minus k, you already had convergence towards your limiting distribution z at time n minus k. So it means that this thing should be of the order of magnitude at most of Bn minus k plus 1. Because you had the convergence distribution at time n minus k plus 1. And that's a contradiction, because we assume that Bn plus 1 was much larger than Bn minus k plus 1. So I hope I convince you. Now I will tell you what is wrong with this argument. What is wrong with this argument is that when you start from a set like that and you iterate, sure, you return. But the point where you return have a small measure. So if you look at A intersected with t minus ka, so the set of points, you start from here. Here you have many points where the f composed with Tn is large. And when you iterate this set, at time k, you will just have an extremely small proportion that will come back here at time k. And the other points will be away from your set A. So it means that you will get something like a contradiction for these points, for this set of points here, which is A intersected with t minus ka, but this set has extremely small measure. And since you're only doing convergence in distribution, having something completely crazy but on a set of very small measure is not a contradiction, in fact. So you need to work more to really prove the theorem here. Turned out that it's true, but instead of just a few lines like the proof above, it's a few pages. But essentially, it's the basic phenomenon is this one, but you want to make it precise, and so you have to be much more careful. And I will not try to do this, no, because I don't want to waste your time. And instead, I will discuss the optimality of this statement. Because I told you I really wanted to prove that something was growing at most polynomial, because that would have been helpful for applications. This is not helpful at all. But it turns out that you cannot do better than this. So the second theorem is that you cannot do better than this in the following sense. There exists conservative ergodic map. There exists a probability measure P absolutely continuous with respect to M. There exists a function f. And there exists, such that you have a limit theorem for T, P, F, and the sequence Bn I can take is exponential of n to the gamma. So in the theorem, first take gamma smaller than 1. Any gamma smaller than 1, then I claim I can find a system in which you have a limit theorem. With a normalizing sequence, which is not exponential, but almost. It's a stretched exponential. No. It can be taken positive. Yes. I can make it positive, if you like. In the example I will give, it will not be the case, but you can make it positive. Okay. So it means, for the applications I have in mind, there is nothing to do. These applications cannot be true. It's okay, you have crazy behavior in infinite ergodic theory, but you already knew that. Well, that's not a real surprise. But still I was surprised by this because it's not the kind of limit theorem you're encountering a lot in the literature. And I will describe the example in 5 minutes. The example itself is extremely classical. But you need to realize that in this system, you can build such a pathological behavior. So the example is a renewal Markov chain. It means that this is a Markov chain where you have some basic atom, and then you do some excursions away from the atom, and you return back to the atom, and you do this again and again. You can also think of it as a tower, where you have the base, and you go up in the tower, and then you go down. So the picture is like that. You have your base. And then you can either go to a point like that, excursion of size 1, and then you go back directly, or you can go to a point which excursions of size 2, and then you go back to the base, or excursions of size 3, and so on. So you see, this Markov chain is completely deterministic, except at the base, where you have to choose in which of the sites here you go. So the only parameter you have is Pn, probar to go from the base to an excursion of length n. So Pn, this is P1. The probability to go from here to here is P1, P2, P3, and so on. And that's the only thing you have to choose. And the rule is that Pn has to add up to 1. But if it goes very slowly to 0, it means that you will have a good chance to choose a very long excursion. And it will make your system not dissipative, but not very conservative in a quantitative way. I mean, you're sure to come back to B infinitely often, so this system is conservative. But if Pn stands very slowly to 0, you will take an extremely long time to go back to the basis. And what the better sequence that is summable but tends slowly to 0, you take Pn equal to 1 over n log n squared. Maybe you need to put a constant so that they add up to 1. Okay, so that's the system I will look at, well, the dynamical system that on the space of trajectories of this Markov chain with the left shift that corresponds to forgetting the site you're at. And I want to define a function. A function of your trajectory will, in fact, just depend on your starting point. And it will just depend on the height of your point in the tower. So it will be just a function of the height, and such that, well, so what you want is that the sum along an excursion of f is the sum along an excursion of f is equal to 0. So here it has to be 0. Here and here they have to add up to 0. Here and here they will add up to 0, and so on. And but you will just do this by adjusting what you put on the last site just before your return. And before the last site, the sum from, if you have, say, 1 to k of f, if you are at 8k, the sum from 1 to k of f, you will take it to be exponential of k to the gamma. Okay? So what's going on is that, look at your Birkhoff sum, you take a trajectory, you start from here, and then you start jumping in your excursion, and you're adding up the values of f, and you're growing like exponential of the height of your point to the power gamma. And then you go to the last site, everything is cancelled, you return back to B, you're at 0, and you take a new excursion. And you do this again, and you grow steadily, and then come back to 0, and so on. And if you take a function like that, P will be the probability mass on the trajectory starting from B. Starting from your base point. And then what happens is that the Birkhoff sum of a point omega, so omega is a trajectory, x0, x1, and so on. Forget about the times where you're just in this last point. They have essentially probability 0. So essentially, this will be exponential of the height of your point at time xn. Okay? And now, if you want to prove a limit theorem, you just need to understand the asymptotic behavior of this height. And in this system, you can compute everything. You can compute everything because to understand the height, you need to understand the successive returns to this B, and it's given by a sum of random variables with extremely heavy tails. But still, we have renewal local limit theorems for this kind of stuff, especially a theorem by Nagayev in this setting. And this, Nagayev gives a renewal theorem that translates in this statement that the probability that the height of your point at time n is between n minus n to the beta and n, it tends to beta for all beta. What does this mean? It means if you take beta close to 1, this is extremely close to 1, so it means that your height is concentrated around n. It's between n minus a small o of n and n. So all the first excursions, you can forget about them, and only the last excursion will be extremely longer than anything you have seen before. That's the kind of behavior you expect. But it's much more precise because you have asymptotic like that. And once you have this asymptotics for the height and a formula for your Birkhoff sum, you can combine the two and get the distributional convergence. And what you get from this, just combining the two, is a limit theorem of this form. SNF divided by exponential n to the gamma tends to some random variable, which is some random variable z, which is again a Bernoulli random variable. It's 0 or 1 with some probability. So it's 0 with probability 1 minus gamma or gamma, say, with probability gamma, and 1 with probability 1 minus gamma. That's a simple asymptotic computation. Okay, and that's a limit theorem in my sense. If you don't like this, because this is a Bernoulli random variable, You can tweak it to get you can tweak it to get something which is 0 with probability gamma, and with the other probability you can get any random variable on the real line you like. So it's still rather soft. You can do a lot of things with this. Just tweaking a little bit these examples, you can also get even weirder things. You can make sure to say that what you can get, and if you want to sing this afternoon because you cannot go walk, with this you can construct examples where b2n plus 1 divided by b2n tends to 0, and b2n plus 2 divided by b2n plus 1 tends to infinity. So there is some oscillation. You can construct an f for which there are oscillations if you want to see the limiting behavior. You can also construct examples where your normalizing sequence Bn tends to 0, which is even more crazy. This is not forbidden by my definition. I did not require that Bn was larger than 1. So you can get any crazy stuff you want. So it means maybe there is nothing really deep to find if you're just looking at general systems. And but if you think of these examples where the sequence is widely oscillating, or this example where Bn goes to 0, all these crazy examples, they have to be covered by this theorem 1. So it means that maybe the proof in theorem 1 is not that easy. In fact, it's not that easy, but I would try to convince you in 1 minute that my proof is correct. Okay? I could do it by giving you the full proof, but it would take me more than 3 hours, and it would, I'm not sure that all of you would enjoy it. Or I could tell you that I'm very careful when I do mathematics, and some of you know it's true, but still everyone makes mistakes. I could tell you I've explained it to a friend of mine, and he listened to all the details and he was convinced. But maybe you heard a story about the proof of Fermat's last theorem by Wiles, where it went exactly in this way, and then a gap had been unnoticed when Wiles had explained the proof to his friend. And what I can tell you is that I've explained the proof to a computer. And the computer has checked every tiny little step in the proof, just going back to the axioms. To the axioms that the real number, well, to the creation of real numbers by quotienting Cauchy sequences of integers, and then going on and on. And in these systems, you can do real mathematics. And in this system, I explained exactly the theorem. And I would just want to show you that it's possible. So here is the assumptions of the theorem. You have a conservative measure presenting system. You have a probability measure on this space, which is absolutely continuous with respect to. Okay. Oh. I have to switch it on. Like that? Okay. I'll do it with the mouse. Okay. This measure P is absolutely continuous with respect to M, and then I have my normalizing sequence Bn. And then forget about the G, I have a probability measure, my measurable function F. And I have Z, which is my real random variable, and I'm assuming that it's not a Dirac mass at 0. And I'm assuming that I have the weak convergence of the Birkhoff sums of F divided by Bn towards Z. And then under these assumptions, I started proving things and things and things, and you don't really want to see the proofs, because the proof is complicated. I did not explain it to you because it was complicated. Okay, and you go on for some time, and in the end, you can prove under the previous assumption, the theorem that you can see here, of subexponential growth, that the maximum of 0 and the logarithm of Bn divided by n tends to 0, which is exactly the theorem I wrote before. And you can notice the maximum of 0 and log of Bn. Why this maximum of 0? Well, you see, the sequence Bn could tend to 0. And I did not prove that it did not tend to 0 super exponentially fast. It's only a claim on the upper bounds for the sequence. And that's what I can prove. And well, I convinced the computer, so I hope I convinced you too. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? And remember, there's a microphone here. Just.
So there were rumors a long time ago that if you have a probability preserving transformation and you look for a functional central limit theorem, then the normalizing constants are regularly varying.
Yes.
Do you have any information, counterexample?
No, it's a theorem by Lamperti that if you have a functional limit theorem
for a stationary process.
Yes. For you don't even need stationary. If you have a sequence Sn like that, and you assume that for all t, you assume that for so you have Birkhoff sum, and you assume that for all t, S integer part of nt divided by Bn converges. Then there is a theorem by Lamperti that says that the limit has to be stable, and the Bn has to be regularly varying. The point here is that I'm not assuming this for all t, just t equal to.
In your theorem 1, do you assume that M is invariant? I mean,
No.
could be infinite?
No, it's
So it applies also to type 3 transformations?
Yes, it's just in a conservative system. No invariance.
Any other questions? Comments? Ah.
Thank you. So you had one of the trivial examples in the beginning with the mixing T,
Mm-hmm.
and then you wrote F as a co-boundary.
Yes.
Okay. So did you think about it taking out the normalizing there?
You mean for the co-boundary case, or?
Yeah, for a co-boundary. So you take F in L2, but T is not in L2. And I think then you can get normal distribution by normalizing properly.
Okay, there is a theorem of convergence of types that tell you that if you know that with some normalizing you converge to a non-trivial limit, then the only way to get convergence to a non-trivial limit is just by multiplying your original sequence, say by a constant. So you can, once you have one limit theorem, you can not get for the same f a different limit theorem up to trivial modifications. So if you start from a co-boundary in a mixing system, the only way to get a limit theorem is just by doing what I did.
So how does it connect to Herrndorf's example?
To which example?
Herrndorf.
I don't know this example, but
Okay,
maybe we
discuss
can
later.
discuss them later.
Any other questions? Yes?
Is there anything about genericity? That means if you have a probability preserving transformation, and if you are in an LP space, then typically you converge to all probability laws.
Well, these are your theorems, Dalibor.
Whether there is something similar for infinite measures?
I don't know. I don't know.
No idea.
Okay, so maybe I suggest we thank the speaker again, and we start with the last talk at past.